Alright. So we're gonna go into the next chapter, which involves the discussion of space. So what does space mean in chess? It refers to the expansion of your pawns. So you can see here that I'm drawing several arrows to show that when you push your pawns, the mobility of your pieces increases because they have more squares to move towards when you move a pawn out. Like say for example, you move this pawn out, right? The queen literally has more squares to move from compared to the starting position. There's no squares at all. It's an important principle to keep in mind because more space means more mobility of all your pieces, which is really important because that way you have more options to attack the opponent's pieces from different angles of the board, while also taking away options from the enemy because the pawns also attack certain squares, right? So in general, you want to avoid exchanges if you have more space, and then if your opponent has an advantage in space, so if you don't have space but your opponent does, then you need to prioritize exchanging pieces so you can relieve pressure from your opponent's pieces. Then you want to find ideal pawn breaks to create more space for yourself, and then look for weak squares that are not covered, while also creating space in another sector or area of the board. So keep in mind that when you push pawns, sorry, I'm going a bit fast, but these are just examples these are just things that you can do if your opponent has an advantage in space. These are the things that you need to resort to alleviate some of that pressure that's being created by your opponent when he creates more space on the board. Keep in mind that when you push pawns, so it does create more space for your pieces to move around, but it also creates space behind. It also creates weak squares if your pieces aren't covering those squares. So if that makes sense, like say for example, I can't give a clear example right now, but I'd say that when the game is more developed, meaning that more pieces have developed and become more active, then the principle will become more clear. Maybe I'll cover it later in a later video. And then in a closed position, pawn breaks are necessary to open files to allow rooks to join in. And if the center is closed, play needs to be found on the sides of the board, okay? So here, if the center is closed.